Supermarkets will not have empty shelves, and that is exactly why many people do not realize a problem is coming. Shortages today are no longer loud. They happen more quietly. You still see products on the shelves, but they are no longer what you used to buy. Smaller bottles, higher prices, different quality. Before the end of January 2026, there are 10 familiar items that you will no longer be able to find easily in the same type, at the same price, with the same quality as before. And no, this video is not calling for stockpiling. It is only meant to help you recognize what is quietly disappearing. 1. Extra virgin olive oil. Olive oil is not disappearing. Shelves are still full. Advertising still talks about heart health, longevity, and the Mediterranean diet. But what is disappearing, quietly and most dangerously, is real extra virgin olive oil, meeting proper standards at its true health value. According to data from the International Olive Council, olive oil production in Europe has declined sharply over multiple consecutive years due to prolonged droughts and extreme temperatures. Spain, Italy, and Greece, the three countries supplying most of the world's olive oil, have all recorded some of their worst harvests in decades. In Spain alone, production dropped by more than 30% in some years. When olive trees experience heat stress, the fruit becomes smaller, oil content decreases, and quality is no longer stable enough to produce high-standard extra virgin oil. The problem is that demand has not declined at all. Consumers, especially those over 50, still believe they are choosing good fats. When the supply of high-quality olives is not enough, the market does not leave shelves empty. The market blends. Bottles still carry the extra virgin label, but the aroma becomes lighter. The sharp, peppery bite at the back of the throat almost disappears, and the polyphenol content, the compounds responsible for anti-inflammatory and heart protective benefits, is far lower than before. Many independent studies in Europe and North America have shown that a significant number of bottles labeled extra virgin do not fully meet sensory and chemical standards when tested. They are not fake oil, but downgraded versions, just good enough to sell, yet no longer good enough to protect health the way buyers expect. This is the most dangerous kind of shortage. There are no out-of-stock signs, no panic buying, just smaller bottles, higher prices, and quality quietly declining year after year. Most buyers do not notice, because they have never tasted true extra virgin olive oil at its best to compare. And the most unsettling part is this. Many people believe they are eating healthier every day, but in reality, they may only be buying a memory of past quality, not the real thing anymore. Olive oil is still there, but true extra virgin, the kind that once formed the foundation of a healthy diet, is quietly retreating from the market before most people realize it. Are you sure the olive oil you are using today is still the same as the one you trusted a few years ago? 2. Pure cocoa powder. Cocoa is in global shortage, and that is a confirmed fact. According to the International Cocoa Organization, the world is facing one of the most severe cocoa shortages in decades, as production in West Africa, the region supplying more than 70% of global cocoa, has declined continuously due to prolonged droughts, irregular rainfall, and crop disease. Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire have both recorded unusually poor harvests, pushing raw cocoa prices to record highs over the past year. But the key point is this. A cocoa shortage does not mean chocolate disappears right away. When raw materials become scarce, the industry follows a very clear order of priority. The first priority always goes to industrial chocolate, candy bars, baked goods, and seasonal products, because they generate the highest profits and are protected by long-term contracts. The rest of the value chain, especially pure cocoa powder used for home baking, cooking, and drinking, is usually the first to be cut. This is why many people still see chocolate on store shelves, while pure cocoa powder, minimally processed, unsweetened, and unblended, becomes harder and harder to find. During shortages, many factories reduce cocoa powder output or shift toward heavily alkalized, more processed versions to stretch supply. This does not shock the market, but it quietly removes the type of cocoa powder many households were used to. For many people, cocoa powder is not a luxury. It is an ingredient for simple baking, a cup of hot cocoa, or traditional home cooking. When it drops out of production priorities, it does not disappear loudly. It comes back more slowly, and when it does, the price often rises to a level that makes people quietly pass it by, because it no longer feels worth buying. Experience from previous shortage cycles shows that pure cocoa powder is often one of the last products to recover. Even when cocoa supply improves, the industry continues to prioritize finished chocolate products. And that is how a familiar ingredient leaves many kitchens without any announcement. Not because it no longer exists, but because it is no longer considered a priority. Have you noticed that chocolate is still everywhere on the shelves, while pure cocoa powder is becoming harder and harder to find? 3. Pure ground Arabica coffee. Coffee is not disappearing. Cafes are still open, shelves are still full, machines still run every morning. But what is becoming harder to find is truly pure, freshly roasted, properly balanced Arabica, the kind that tastes the way it used to. And the first people to notice are not coffee experts, but those who have been drinking coffee every day for many years. In recent years, the Arabica coffee supply chain has been under constant pressure from climate disruption in Brazil, Colombia, and Ethiopia. Prolonged heat, unexpected frost, and irregular rainfall have significantly reduced high-quality Arabica yields. When good beans become scarce, roasters do not announce that coffee is gone. They do something quieter. They blend more aggressively, roast darker to mask defects, and sell older inventory longer. The result is coffee that still carries the Arabica name, but with muted aroma, bright acidity replaced by harsh bitterness, and a morning cup that no longer wakes you up the way it once did. One man who drank Arabica for over 20 years shared that he did not change brands, brewing method, or machine. Yet over the past year, he began adding sugar, something he had never done in 2 decades. Not because his taste changed, but because the coffee did. What matters is that this shortage does not happen all at once. It does not empty shelves. It simply lowers quality batch by batch, shipment by shipment. Drinkers do not feel a lack of coffee, but a loss of familiarity. And when properly sourced Arabica does return, if it does, the price is often high enough that many people quietly accept something close enough instead. Pure Arabica coffee has therefore become one of the items disappearing in the least noticeable way. No noise, no panic, just a gradual retreat from daily routine. You are still drinking coffee, but the coffee no longer tastes like the one you once relied on. When did your morning cup start feeling not quite right anymore? And are you sure it was you that changed, or the coffee itself? 4. Organic eggs. Eggs are still there. Supermarket shelves are not empty. Refrigerated cases are still full of cartons. But organic eggs are no longer consistent the way they used to be. Some weeks you can find them, some weeks you cannot. Sometimes prices jump suddenly. Sometimes purchases are limited to a few cartons per person. And the most frustrating part is this: they disappear without warning. Unlike industrial eggs, organic eggs depend heavily on natural conditions. Free-range hens lay fewer eggs during colder seasons, when daylight hours shorten or when temperatures drop. At the same time, the cost of organic feed, heating, and labor continues to rise. Small farms, which produce most organic eggs, cannot simply push output the way industrial operations can. They can only accept lower production, sell more slowly, and prioritize regular customers. The result is that organic eggs do not disappear completely, but supply becomes unpredictable. One suburban home cook shared that she did not change her eating habits or her store. Yet throughout last winter, she had to visit the supermarket 3 times in a single week just to find the same organic eggs she had been buying for years. One visit, the shelf was empty. Another, only conventional eggs remained. Another had organic eggs but limited to 1 carton per customer. It did not cause panic, but it disrupted a very basic routine. Retail chains understand this well. When supply tightens, organic eggs are often the first category to be reduced. Less shelf space, fewer shipments, or purchase limits. Because in large distribution systems, industrial eggs still guarantee volume and revenue, while organic eggs are treated as a secondary item, even though for long-time consumers, they are anything but secondary. The shortage of organic eggs, therefore, has a very familiar characteristic. It does not make you hungry, but it forces you to adjust. Adjust your breakfast, adjust the way you cook, and gradually adjust the standard you once assumed was guaranteed. Eggs are still there, but the eggs you trusted are no longer always waiting for you on the shelf. Have you recently had to buy regular eggs just because you could not find organic ones the way you used to? 5. Frozen broccoli. Frozen vegetables depend on more than most people realize. Not just farming, but an entire chain that must function smoothly at the same time. Harvesting at the right moment, freezing plants running continuously, uninterrupted electricity, adequate packaging, sufficient cold storage, and refrigerated trucks operating on schedule. When just one link fails, the result is not a vegetable shortage, but disappearance from the shelf. Frozen broccoli is the clearest example. It is a familiar vegetable, easy to eat, and widely chosen by many people over 50 because it is convenient, consistent, and affordable. But precisely because it is inexpensive and carries thin profit margins, it is often the first to be cut when costs rise. When electricity prices increase, packaging becomes scarce, or factories shift capacity toward higher margin products, store-brand frozen broccoli is usually the first to go, while higher-priced name brands remain. This creates a familiar paradox. You walk into the supermarket and see frozen vegetables still available, but not the specific one you always bought. One older home cook shared that she did not lack fresh vegetables and was not worried about hunger. Yet for weeks in a row, she could not find the store-brand frozen broccoli she relied on for quick soups and stir-fries. The shelf only held organic versions that cost twice as much and came in smaller packages. There were no shortage notices, no out-of-stock signs, just a familiar item quietly gone. This shortage does not cause panic because it is not loud. It forces people to adjust, change dishes, adjust budgets, change cooking habits. For many people, frozen vegetables are the safe option when they are tired, busy, or do not want to go shopping. When that safe option is no longer reliable, the inconvenience becomes more noticeable than an obvious shortage. Frozen broccoli does not disappear because it cannot be grown. It disappears because the system behind it is too complex to keep a low-margin product consistently available. And in every period of instability, the first things to retreat are not premium items, but the affordable, familiar, and dependable choices people rely on most. Have you recently noticed that low-priced store-brand frozen vegetables disappear, while the more expensive versions remain fully stocked? 6. Jasmine rice, Thai fragrant rice. Rice is not disappearing. Shelves still carry rice. But jasmine rice, the fragrant variety many families have eaten for decades, is a very different story. This is not a type of rice classified as a food security staple. It is not something governments are required to stabilize at all costs. And that is exactly why jasmine rice is often the first to be adjusted when markets become strained. When fertilizer costs rise, weather becomes unstable, and international shipping grows more expensive. Rice exporting countries tend to prioritize securing basic white rice for domestic markets and strategic contracts. Fragrant rice like jasmine, often considered higher quality and non-essential, is usually the first to face quota cuts. This rarely comes with loud announcements, but buyers notice the impact quickly. Sudden price spikes, large 10 to 20 kilogram bags disappearing, or only unfamiliar brands remaining, lacking the familiar aroma and texture people are used to. One viewer left a comment that captures this perfectly. Rice is not missing. It is just no longer the kind we are used to eating. This same observation appears across many regions. It is not that people cannot cook rice anymore, but many are forced to switch to a type they never intended to change. And for a food that appears almost every day on the table, that change is not small at all. What matters is that jasmine rice does not disappear in an obvious, empty shelf way. It disappears in a way that makes you hesitate, buying smaller bags at higher prices, accepting blended varieties, or switching to another type because there seems to be no other choice. This kind of shortage does not cause panic, but it slowly erodes long-standing eating habits, especially for families accustomed to a specific aroma, a specific texture, a very familiar feeling when lifting the lid of the rice pot. Jasmine rice is therefore a clear example of the new kind of shortage. No noise, no empty shelves, no clear purchase limits. But choice is narrowed little by little, and the people who cook rice every day are always the first to notice. Has your family ever had to switch rice types because your usual jasmine was no longer available, or because rising prices forced you to reconsider? 7. Off-season fresh strawberries. Winter strawberries have never been a stable product. Longtime shoppers understand that. But this year, the instability is no longer about whether they exist or not. It is about never knowing what kind of strawberries you will find when you walk into the store. One week they are there, the next week they are gone. One store has them, another does not. And the changes happen so quickly that buyers often end up blaming themselves. A very small story, repeated everywhere. A grandmother buys strawberries to make a birthday cake for her grandchild. The first box still looks red, but the berries are small, bland, soft, and bruise easily, needing very careful washing. She thinks, "This must be a bad batch." The following week, she returns to the same store, and the strawberries are completely gone. No sign, no notice. An employee simply says, "This week, we do not have them." The birthday still happens, but the cake has to be changed. No one calls that a shortage. But the sense of disappointment is very real. That is exactly how off-season strawberries disappear. Not loudly, not with empty shelves everywhere. Unstable weather in California and Florida keeps throwing harvests off rhythm. Cold spells cause blossoms to drop. Sudden warmth makes fruit ripen too fast and spoil before harvest. When yields fall, strawberries are prioritized for large contracts, processing chains, and industrial food use first. Whatever remains goes to supermarkets, and that supply is never consistent from one week to the next. Strawberries also depend heavily on cold transport, fuel, drivers, and timing. One delay in the chain, and an entire shipment can be rejected for quality reasons. The result is that consumers still see strawberries, but they are smaller, blander, more expensive, or they appear briefly and vanish without warning. That is why so many people do not think of it as a shortage. They just think, maybe it is my store. But when the same experience repeats in many places, it is no longer personal. It is a clear sign of a strained supply chain, and off-season strawberries are often the first item to reveal it. Have you ever gone back to buy strawberries just 1 week later and realized everything had completely changed? 8. Almond flour, wheat flour still fills the shelves. And that is exactly why many people believe everything is fine. But almond flour is different. It is one of those items that disappears very quietly, without noise, without a sense of crisis, until the moment you actually need it and realize your familiar option is no longer there. Almond flour depends almost entirely on a stable almond supply, and almonds are among the most drought-sensitive crops. California, which supplies most almonds, has faced years of water shortages, irrigation cuts, and rising production costs. When yields decline, retail almond flour is never the priority. Whole almonds for export, almond oil, and industrial almond milk always come first. Whatever remains is ground into flour, and that amount is usually not enough to maintain steady supply. For retail chains, almond flour is not an essential item. It does not determine whether customers return to the store. When transportation costs rise, warehouse space tightens, or shelf space is needed for faster-selling products, almond flour is often the first to be removed from reorders. No out-of-stock sign, no announcement. It simply is not reordered. A very familiar story. Someone has followed a keto diet for years, buying the same bag of almond flour every week for baking and cooking. 1 week, the shelf is empty. They assume it is temporary. The next week, it is still not there. Sometime later, almond flour reappears. Same brand, but the bag is smaller and the price is clearly higher. No explanation. No one calls it a shortage. The shopper simply adjusts their habits in silence. That is the hardest kind of shortage to notice. Not when an item is gone, but when it comes back priced beyond what you are willing to accept. Almond flour does not disappear completely. It slowly disappears from many kitchens in exactly this way. Are you gradually giving up a familiar item, not because it is gone, but because it no longer feels meant for you? 9. Fresh chicken wings. Chicken is not disappearing. Many shoppers still see chicken breasts, thighs, and whole chickens fully stocked and conclude that everything is normal. But wings are the cut that makes many people notice change sooner than they expect. There's a comment that keeps appearing under recent food videos. I am not short on food, but every time I want to cook something familiar for my family, the one thing I need is missing. Chicken wings are the clearest example of that feeling. Chicken wings are not survival food. They are food of habit, of weekends, of meals meant to bring people together. And precisely because of that, when wings disappear, people do not panic. They simply feel that a familiar part of daily life has been quietly removed without explanation. You walk up to the meat counter. Everything is still lit, still stocked, but the wing tray is empty. No sign, no notice, just not available today. Another viewer once said, I started noticing because wings were the only item on my list that I kept having to replace. Not because they could not afford them, but because they were not there to buy. The change is small, but for someone who cooks regularly, it is enough to create the sense that grocery shopping is no longer as reliable as it used to be. What makes chicken wings different is not the price, but timing. You do not buy wings to store for months. You buy them because you need them that day. And when an item disappears exactly at the moment people expect it to be there, it leaves a stronger impression than price increases or smaller packages ever could. That is why many people do not say wings are in shortage. They simply say they are harder to find lately. But when a familiar item repeatedly forces people to change meal plans, it is no longer just a problem of one store. It is a sign that the market still has food, but no longer guarantees the right choices the way it once did. Have you ever had to change a meal at the last minute? Not because you wanted to, but because that familiar item was simply no longer there? 10. Unsweetened oat milk. Oat milk is still there. Looking at the shelves, many people think everything is normal. But if you pay closer attention, what is slowly disappearing is not oat milk in general, but unsweetened oat milk. This version sells more slowly, carries lower margins, and does not appeal to the majority. When supply chains tighten, retailers do not need to cut an entire product line. They simply keep the versions that are easiest to sell. One viewer wrote very simply, "I can still buy oat milk, but not the kind I can drink every day." That sentence captures the reality for many older adults, people on restricted diets, or those who need to control blood sugar. For them, switching to sweetened versions is not a preference. It is not an option. What stands out is that this shortage does not trigger strong reactions. No empty shelves, no out-of-stock notices, just fewer suitable choices each time you shop. People either accept products that no longer meet their needs, or quietly stop buying them altogether. Unsweetened oat milk does not disappear completely. It simply slips out of the daily routines of the people who need it most, in a very quiet way. Are you noticing that shelves are still full, but the items that actually work for you are becoming harder and harder to find? This is not a call to stockpile. It is a reminder. Pay attention to what is changing before you are forced to change with it. If this video helps you see the grocery store differently, follow the channel. Because the grocery market is changing very fast, and the hardest part is not running out of things, but failing to notice when it begins.